There will always be people who try to influence you. Some will do it with words, some with silence, some with guilt, some with praise. Some will make you question yourself so that you begin to depend on their approval. And sometimes you will not even recognize what is happening until you realize that you are no longer making decisions from your own mind. You are reacting, you are explaining, you are defending, you are seeking permission to be who you already are. But understand this, being impossible to manipulate does not mean becoming cold. It does not mean trusting nobody. It does not mean building walls around yourself. It means becoming so aware of yourself that you no longer surrender your mind simply because someone knows how to press your emotional buttons. When you know what you value, you become difficult to control. When you understand your emotions, you become difficult to provoke. When you can sit with silence, you become difficult to pressure. And when you stop needing everyone to understand you, approve of you, or agree with you, something changes inside. You become free. The strongest person in the room is not always the loudest person. Sometimes it is the person who can remain silent when others expect a reaction. The person who can hear an accusation without immediately defending themselves. The person who can say no without creating a long explanation. The person who can walk away without needing to prove that they were right. This is where true self-mastery begins, because manipulation requires participation. Someone can offer you guilt, but you do not have to carry it. Someone can offer you anger, but you do not have to become angry. Someone can offer you fear, but you do not have to make decisions from fear. Someone can question your worth, but you do not have to question yourself. You cannot always control what people say, how they behave, or what they try to take from you. But you can train yourself to control what happens inside you. And that is where your real power begins. Do not give another person the ability to control your peace, simply because they know how to disturb it. Pause, observe, breathe, then choose. Because the moment you stop reacting automatically, you begin responding consciously. And the moment you begin responding consciously, you become much harder to manipulate. Your mind becomes your own again. Your emotions become information instead of weapons against you. Your boundaries become clear. Your silence becomes intentional, and your life begins to belong to you. So today, do not ask yourself how to control other people. Ask yourself something deeper. How much control do other people still have over me? And then begin taking that control back. Manipulation becomes powerful when another person can control your emotional state. If someone knows exactly what to say to make you angry, guilty, afraid, insecure, or desperate for approval, they have discovered a doorway into your mind. They may not control your body, your environment, or your decisions directly, but they can influence your choices by controlling what you feel in the moment. This is why mastering your emotional reactions is one of the first steps toward becoming impossible to manipulate. Think about what happens when someone provokes you. They say something disrespectful, and immediately you feel the need to defend yourself. They accuse you of something, and you begin explaining. They ignore you, and suddenly you feel anxious. They criticize you, and you start questioning your worth. They withdraw their attention, and you chase after it. Notice what is happening. The other person has done something, but you are now carrying the emotional consequence. This does not mean your emotions are wrong. Your emotions are signals. They can tell you that something feels unfair, unsafe, disrespectful, or important. But a signal is not an instruction. Feeling anger does not mean you must attack. Feeling fear does not mean you must retreat. Feeling guilt does not automatically mean you have done something wrong. Feeling pressure does not mean you must agree. There is a space between what happens and what you do next. That space is where your freedom exists. A person who has not trained their emotional awareness reacts immediately. Someone pushes, they push back. Someone raises their voice, they raise theirs. Someone becomes distant, they become desperate. Someone criticizes them, they begin defending themselves. Their behavior is constantly shaped by the behavior of others. But when you become aware of your emotions, you begin to create distance between the feeling and the action. You can notice anger without becoming anger. You can notice fear without allowing fear to make the decision. You can notice insecurity without handing your confidence to another person. This is emotional discipline. It is not about suppressing emotion. Suppression means pushing the feeling away and pretending it does not exist. Mastery is different. Mastery means you can experience the emotion fully, without allowing it to take control of your behavior. Imagine someone trying to provoke you because they know you react quickly. They make a comment designed to hurt you. You feel the heat rising inside your body. Your mind immediately prepares an answer. You want to respond, prove yourself, or make them feel what you are feeling, but instead of reacting, you pause, you breathe, you observe, you ask yourself, what is this person trying to make me feel, and why? That simple pause changes everything. Now you are no longer simply reacting to their behavior. You are observing the situation. You are thinking instead of being driven by impulse. You are choosing your response rather than surrendering it. The goal is not to become emotionless. A person without emotions is not necessarily strong. Real strength is having emotions and still remaining capable of choosing wisely. Your anger can become awareness. Your fear can become caution. Your disappointment can become clarity. Your frustration can become information. Your emotions can teach you what matters, where your boundaries are being crossed, and which situations require your attention. But they should never become the person making every decision for you. The less predictable your reactions become, the less power manipulators have over you. When they cannot easily trigger your anger, guilt, fear, or desperation, their usual methods lose their effectiveness. You begin to understand that not every statement deserves an answer, not every accusation deserves a defense, not every misunderstanding requires an explanation, and not every emotional demand deserves your immediate attention. When you know your values and boundaries, you become much harder to manipulate, because you are no longer allowing other people to decide what you should accept, tolerate, or become. A person without clear boundaries can easily be pushed in different directions. One person wants something from them, so they say yes. Another becomes disappointed, so they change their decision. Someone becomes angry, so they apologize even when they have done nothing wrong. Someone threatens to leave, so they abandon their own needs just to keep the relationship. Slowly, they begin living according to other people's reactions instead of their own principles. Your values are the foundation beneath your decisions. They answer a simple but powerful question: what matters to me even when nobody is watching? Maybe you value honesty, respect, discipline, loyalty, peace, responsibility, freedom, or personal growth. When these values become clear, decisions become easier because you have something inside you that guides you. Without values, you can be easily influenced by whatever is strongest in the moment. With values, you have an inner direction. This does not mean you will never change your mind. Growth requires flexibility. But there is a difference between changing because you have learned something and changing because someone pressured you into submission. One comes from awareness. The other comes from fear. Boundaries protect the space between your values and the demands of the outside world. A boundary is not a punishment. It is not an attempt to control another person. It is a clear statement of what you will and will not participate in. You can care about someone and still say no. You can respect someone and still disagree with them. You can love someone and still refuse to accept disrespect. You can understand someone's pain without allowing their pain to become an excuse for hurting you. This is where many people become confused. They believe being kind means always being available. They believe being generous means always giving. They believe being understanding means tolerating everything. But kindness without boundaries can become self-neglect. If you constantly sacrifice your peace to protect someone else's feelings, eventually you lose connection with yourself. Manipulation often begins when someone discovers that you are afraid of disappointing them. They learn that guilt makes you change your decision. They learn that anger makes you surrender. They learn that silence makes you chase them. They learn that criticism makes you explain yourself endlessly. Once they discover these patterns, they can repeat them. But when your boundaries become clear, the pattern changes. You do not need to announce every boundary dramatically. Sometimes the strongest boundary is simply a calm decision followed by consistent action. You say, "I cannot do that." And you do not create 10 explanations to make your decision acceptable. You say, "I am not comfortable with that." And you do not allow someone else to convince you that your discomfort is meaningless. You say, "If you speak to me disrespectfully, I will leave the conversation." And when disrespect continues, you leave. The power is not in the words. The power is in the consistencies. A boundary that you never enforce becomes a request. A boundary that you consistently respect becomes part of your character. This is why you must know yourself before you try to become impossible to manipulate. If you do not know what you stand for, someone else can easily convince you to stand somewhere else. Take time to examine your life. What will you no longer tolerate? What principles are non-negotiable for you? What behaviors drain your energy? What situations repeatedly make you betray your own needs? Where do you say yes when you actually mean no? These questions are not about becoming selfish. They are about becoming conscious. Because when you know your values, you stop needing the world to tell you who you are. And when you know your boundaries, you stop allowing every person who enters your life to determine how you should be treated, what you should accept, and how much of yourself you are willing to give away. There is a moment that most people overlook. Something happens. A word is spoken. A message is. Someone criticizes you, ignores you, challenges you, or tries to pressure you, and immediately your mind begins preparing a reaction. You feel something inside you and believe you must act upon it. But you do not. You can pause. That pause may look small from the outside, but internally it is a powerful act of self-control. When you pause before responding, you create distance between the event and your reaction. In that distance, you regain your ability to choose. Without the pause, emotion often takes control before awareness has a chance to speak. Someone insults you, and you answer. Someone raises their voice, and you raise yours. Someone sends an angry message, and you immediately respond with another angry message. Someone tries to make you feel guilty, and you begin explaining yourself. This is how unnecessary conflict grows. Not because the original situation was impossible to handle, but because the reaction happened too quickly. A pause changes the entire situation. It gives your nervous system a moment to settle. It gives your mind time to observe. It allows you to ask a better question. What response will serve me best? Not, what do I feel like doing right now? Not, how can I hurt them back? Not, how can I prove that I am right? But, what is the wisest response? This is the difference between impulse and intention. You cannot always control what enters your life. You cannot control another person's words, mood, behavior, or expectations, but you can train yourself not to hand over your next action to whatever happens around you. Sometimes the strongest response is no immediate response at all. You can say, I need some time to think about this. You can remain silent. You can take a breath before answering. You can walk away from the conversation and return when you are calm. You can read the message twice instead of responding from the first emotion it creates. These actions are not weakness. They are evidence that you are no longer controlled by urgency. Manipulation often depends on speed. The manipulator wants you to react before you think. They may create pressure and demand an immediate answer. They may say, decide now. They may provoke you and wait for you to lose control. They may use your emotions against you because they know that when you are overwhelmed, you become easier to influence. But you do not have to accept their timeline. You are allowed to pause. You are allowed to think. You are allowed to say, I will get back to you. You are allowed to make decisions when your mind is clear. A calm mind sees possibilities that an emotional mind cannot always see. When you are angry, everything can appear like an attack. When you are afraid, everything can appear like a threat. When you are desperate for approval, every disagreement can feel like rejection. But after you pause, the same situation may look completely different. You may realize that the comment did not deserve your energy. You may recognize that the person was attempting to provoke you. You may discover that you misunderstood the situation. Or you may realize that your boundary has genuinely been crossed and that a calm, firm response is necessary. The pause does not tell you what to choose. It gives you the ability to choose. This is why emotional strength is not measured by how quickly you respond. Sometimes it is measured by how comfortably you can wait. Train yourself to become comfortable with the space between stimulus and response. When someone pushes your buttons, notice the feeling. When someone pressures you, notice the pressure. When someone tries to pull you into an argument, notice the invitation, then breathe. Observe, choose. You do not need to answer every question immediately. You do not need to defend every accusation. You do not need to correct every misunderstanding. You do not need to prove your worth in every conversation. The world will constantly offer you opportunities to react. Your strength is deciding which ones deserve your response. One of the strongest forms of freedom begins when you stop needing everyone to approve of you. As long as your confidence depends on the opinions of other people, someone else will always have a certain amount of control over your emotional state. If they praise you, you feel valuable. If they criticize you, you question yourself. If they accept you, you feel secure. If they reject you, you feel incomplete. Your sense of worth rises and falls according to the reactions of people around you. This creates a dangerous weakness because approval can become something you constantly chase. You begin changing your personality to be accepted. You say what people want to hear. You agree when you actually disagree. You hide your opinions because you are afraid of judgment. You tolerate disrespect because you do not want someone to leave. You explain your decisions repeatedly because you want everyone to understand and approve of them. Slowly, you stop asking yourself what is right for you and start asking, what will they think of me? That question can control an entire life. When you become dependent on approval, manipulation becomes easier. Someone can control you simply by threatening to withdraw their acceptance. They do not need to force you. They only need to make you afraid of being disliked. They can give you attention and then take it away. They can praise you and then criticize you. They can make you feel special and then make you feel guilty. If you are desperate to regain their approval, you may begin doing things you would normally refuse to do. This is why inner confidence matters. Real confidence does not mean believing that everyone will like you. It means being able to remain grounded when someone does not. Not everyone will understand your decisions. Not everyone will agree with your boundaries. Not everyone will appreciate your growth. Not everyone will recognize your intentions. And that is okay. You do not need universal approval to live according to your values. There will be moments when choosing yourself disappoints someone else. There will be moments when saying no makes someone uncomfortable. There will be moments when walking away makes people misunderstand you. If your peace depends on avoiding all disappointment, you will spend your entire life managing other people's emotions. You cannot control how everyone feels about you. You can control whether you betray yourself to make them comfortable. This is where emotional independence begins. You can listen to advice without becoming dependent on it. You can accept criticism without allowing it to define you. You can appreciate praise without needing it to feel worthy. You can hear someone's opinion without immediately changing your direction. The goal is not to become arrogant. It is to become internally anchored. An arrogant person believes, I am always right. A grounded person thinks, I am willing to listen, but I will decide for myself. That distinction is powerful. When you stop chasing approval, your relationships also begin to change. You become more honest because you no longer need to perform a version of yourself that others will accept. You begin saying what you mean. You begin setting boundaries. You stop over-explaining. You stop trying to convince everyone that your intentions are good. You realize that people who genuinely respect you do not require you to constantly prove your worth. And those who only value you when you obey them were never offering true respect. Your worth does not increase because someone praises you. Your worth does not decrease because someone rejects you. Their opinion is information, not your identity. So when someone misunderstands you, remain calm. When someone criticizes you unfairly, examine it without immediately accepting it. When someone does not approve of your decision, ask yourself whether you violated your values or simply disappointed their expectations. That question can save you from years of unnecessary self-doubt. You are allowed to grow beyond people's expectations. You are allowed to become different. You are allowed to choose a quieter life. You are allowed to protect your time. You are allowed to say no. You are allowed to walk away, and you are allowed to live without constantly asking the world for permission to be yourself. Inner strength is not something you develop by controlling everyone around you. It is developed by learning to control yourself, understand yourself, and remain grounded when the world around you becomes uncertain. If you want to become difficult to manipulate, you must first become deeply aware of your own thoughts, emotions, habits, weaknesses, and patterns. The more you understand yourself, the less opportunity other people have to use your blind spots against you. Awareness begins with observation. Observe what happens inside you when someone criticizes you. Observe what happens when someone ignores you. Observe how you react when you feel rejected, disrespected, pressured, or misunderstood? Do you become defensive? Do you immediately explain yourself? Do you become angry? Do you become silent because you are afraid of conflict? Do you try desperately to make the other person happy? These reactions reveal something about you. They are not reasons to judge yourself. They are opportunities to understand yourself. A person who does not observe their own patterns can easily be controlled by them. But when you begin watching your reactions without immediately obeying them, you create awareness. You start recognizing the situations that repeatedly pull you away from your values. Perhaps you notice that you become vulnerable when someone gives you praise. Perhaps you realize that guilt makes you say yes. Perhaps you discover that criticism makes you question yourself too quickly. Maybe you notice that you become afraid when someone threatens to leave. These discoveries are powerful because what you can see, you can begin to change. Manipulation often succeeds through emotional blind spots. Someone discovers what you fear, what you crave, what you cannot tolerate, or what you desperately want to prove. Then they use that knowledge to influence your behavior. But imagine what happens when you already know those weaknesses yourself. If you know that you seek approval, you can recognize when someone is using approval to influence you. If you know that you fear rejection, you can notice when someone is creating fear of abandonment. If you know that anger controls your judgment, you can pause when someone deliberately provokes you. Awareness removes surprise. And when you are no longer surprised by your own emotional patterns, you become much harder to control. Inner strength also requires patience. You cannot build a stable mind in one day. It is developed through repeated moments of choosing awareness over impulse. Every time you remain calm when you could have exploded, you strengthen yourself. Every time you maintain a boundary without guilt, you strengthen yourself. Every time you walk away from an unnecessary argument, you strengthen yourself. Every time you choose your values over temporary approval, you strengthen yourself. These small choices become your character. Eventually, you stop needing to prove that you are strong because your behavior demonstrates it. You also begin to understand people more clearly. You notice patterns instead of becoming distracted by individual words. You notice when someone's kindness appears only when they want something. You notice when praise is followed by a request. You notice when guilt appears whenever you establish a boundary. You notice when someone repeatedly creates confusion and then blames you for being confused. You do not need to become suspicious of everyone. Awareness is not paranoia. It is simply the ability to observe without immediately trusting, fearing, attacking, or idealizing. You listen, you watch, you allow patterns to reveal themselves. And most importantly, you remain connected to yourself while observing others. Your goal is not to become someone who can manipulate better than others. Your goal is to become someone who no longer needs manipulation to feel powerful. You do not need to control people when you have control over yourself. This is the deeper meaning of self-mastery. You become calm without becoming passive. You become kind without becoming weak. You become confident without becoming arrogant. You become aware without becoming suspicious. You become firm without becoming cruel. And you begin to understand that real power is not the ability to make other people do what you want. Real power is the ability to remain yourself when someone else desperately wants you to become someone you are not.